Hey guys, this is miicrow. I wanted to kind of do a news recap of where this channel's at, where I'm at, and then along with talk about a topic today in terms of forts, because I feel like a lot of people aren't really utilizing forts right now, and there's a few of these that are really, really powerful, and I kind of wanted to talk about those as well. But first, getting into the announcements here, there's been a lot of people that have been joining the Discord lately, and I don't think a lot of people know the layout of the Discord, so I kind of wanted to show like how this works for newer people. First thing first, roles has pings. If you don't select a role, I do not ping you in the Discord, so don't worry about that. Uh, there's an announcements channel. This is basically me just going live. It's just random things that I put out in terms of videos. So if you select a role, it can ping you. That's just mostly where I put important information. There's a news channel, which basically just reads off an announcement thing that AGS has and supplies news. This is like a really good spot to kind of just check for patch notes. If you want concise information about new AGS videos, like when the devs actually start talking, which it feels like it's been a while since we've heard from the devs. This is like a really good spot to go to for quick resources. There's also a resources tab. The resources tab has a good amount of content. The most recent thing I put in here, which a shout out to Schmeck, is video on PvE in terms of optimization, in terms of like why people build things certain ways in PvE in order to get lots of value. Uh, I'll give you a very high level of it. It is You don't need gear score to do well in PvP. I'm hearing some people say, "Oh, I can't get into a sandworm unless I have 710." It's not about 710. It's about communication. It's about having the right buffs, the right debuffs, and a good build composition. Like some people are just trying to brute force these mechanics, and I feel bad because a lot of people are trying to like pug raids right now because they give good rewards for endgame, but you 100% don't need to do that. So just check this out too. I recommend that. There's a lot of other things within in this too that are like relatively useful. Like for example, for wars, there's a respawn timer bot. This has been updated a little bit, so I don't know if it's completely accurate, but there's just like a lot of stuff in here that is relatively useful. I have a list of tech that has like all the PvP tech, and that's like just generally useful information. There's a promotions tab. This is intended to be shouting out to any streamers that want to get kind of or starting to grow, or even big people like Eldorian's like a relatively big streamer at this point, and it will show up with their videos automatically. If you have a YouTube video, you can post it here. I like to go through this from time to time. I use this to figure out who I want to host at the end of Twitch streams, and a lot of people have like pretty decent content and some silly content. Uh, there's also general chat, which I think everyone knows about. There's a specialization discussion. This is for general class overview stuff. So it's like if you want to discuss IGVG, there is a lot of information here about the IGVG class. Like if you want to talk about flow support, there's a lot of information about the flow class. So that's what this is intended for. So it's a little bit higher level discussions, a little bit less build specific, but tends to get more traction. So it's like, hey, like it's like kind of meta discussions for those class. Like for fire staff, do we go rapier now? Do we go IG now? Like what do you guys think? Like those kind of questions tend to go in here. If no one responds to you, just ping me, and then I can respond to those as well when I get time. There's a build section, obviously very, very popular. I can't read all of them. I tried to respond to all the ones that don't have as many comments. It is a matter of time. Right now is the issue for me. I am one person. I work a full-time job. New World's a side thing, so it's like I don't have time to respond to everybody until the weekends. I do have a new channel point thing on Twitch, though, so if you watch Twitch and get 5,000 points, you could redeem a thing, and then I could rate your build and kind of give you pointers on that. So if you do that, that will kind of force me to look at your build, if that makes sense, versus this is like more of a I will get to this when I can. So that will kind of prioritize your stuff a little bit higher, but there's just so much stuff in here. If I don't get to it, you could ping me and I could try to get to it, but like as you see, like my DMs like blow up pretty consistently. Like I will go like an hour and I'll have like 10 to 20 DMs. It's like a little bit difficult at this point to keep up with everything. And then lastly, there's a VOD review section. This is intended for kind of wars, OPRs. Basically, the best way to get good at the game is to understand your mistakes. So one thing a lot of people like to do is record gameplay and then like kind of replay it back. This is a spot where if you put your gameplay in here, it will generally be harsher feedback, but we will go through stuff and try to give as much constructive criticism as we can. I understand this is like a little bit less of a thing now, though, because wars are a little bit more elitist. Like there's not as many opportunities to kind of get into that scene. But if you're just worried about, if you want to become a better OPR player, if you want to become a better war player, like better like FFA Island player or something like that, like that's a good resource for you guys. So that's like the first big announcement. Second big announcement is channel's been kind of blowing up recently. I think the last month, I think we got like maybe 1,000 new people, so it grew by almost 20% in a month, which is incredible. But I still have 60% of people that are watching videos pretty consistently that aren't subbed. So if the videos are helpful to you, please consider doing so. It's a way to give back to me. It doesn't cost you anything. If you another thing too is like if you are enjoying the content, like let me know. If you want to see something else, also let me know. I try to read all the comments I can. The problem is I'm posting so much now that the comments is like super like jarring when I try to go through them. Like if I go to comments and then I go to haven't responded, like I just like go through this for like hours upon hours, like every day, and I try to respond as many as I can. But it's like every different video has a new comment. It feels like every other day, which is really good. It's a good problem to have, but I can't get to everything anymore. I try. So if you have something that like you need to know or you like really need feedback on, please ping me. I will try to read these, but it's like I can't guarantee getting to this anymore. And then I think that's it for the announcements for the most part. Biggest thing that happened in New World recently is AGS moved their season 6 deadline back a while, so this is going to be at the like in January is when the season's going to end. This is pretty typical of AGS. If you're new to New World, I would say New World's a very popular seasonal game. I would not say New World's a game that you could play all the time and find consistent happiness in. There's usually about 3 months worth of content for every year the content comes out. So I'd say that the game is generally popular for about 3 months. And then there's like 9-ish months of like, it's okay, but like there's not a ton of stuff going on. Like I see a lot of new people saying, okay, where's the content? We played through all this stuff. Where's the content? It's like, we've been asking the same thing for the last like year and a half, but it's like from AGS historically, like speaking, is more of a seasonal game. You have to realize too that their dev resources are going to be prioritized into fixing bugs or producing content, and they can't do both at the same time, which is very, very, very frustrating. But that's kind of what you have to live with. So it just generally speaking, once the content drops, there's about 3-ish months that is just fixing bugs. After that, they start prepping for the new content, and they kind of leave the current game at the wayside a little bit and do like minor patches to adjust metas and stuff like that. So that's one thing I updated there. And then lastly, I want to kind of talk about forts recently. Like I'm not like an economic whiz at this game, but there's a lot of trade skills that benefit significantly from having forts, and I kind of want to go through these because some of them are like kind of utterly useless, and I think people don't realize that. And there's others that are like really, really useful. So the idea behind forts is this is like an open world PvP instance where if you take it, you lock the other factions out for a certain period of time. You have to go in here flagged, and if you capture it, you gain a faction level or faction global bonus. So, for example, in Monarch's Bluffs, if I were to take this territory, I would get 20% more influence, 5% more experience, and then also from a faction bonus perspective, I'd get a global experience boost of plus 5%. Now, this is in a new area, right? Like, this is like a level 0 to 25 area, so it kind of makes sense why they put this bonus here. It's intended to be something that if, like, a new player captures, they can gain more experience. This 5%, though, that you gain there is the same equivalence of just flagging up in PvP, which you can do by pressing the U button on PC. I don't know what it is on Xbox, but it should tell you, or PlayStation, but it should tell you in a tutorial, and that's something that you could use to significantly speed up your leveling process. I saw some people that still are not level 65, so that's something that might help a little bit. Another trick that helps a lot with leveling that I didn't realize when I was leveling is if you do these random expeditions, they give you half of a level of XP every time you do one. So particularly like when you get to level 60, level 65, like the leveling slows down significantly. But if you just do 3 of these a day, you gain a level and a half, and it only would take you like maybe an hour to do that if you have a decent group, hour and a half tops. So it's like that's a relatively good way to gain XP. It's also a good way to gain gold as well. So if you do the random expeditions, you get like about 1,000 gold right now, even though it says 125 because AGS, once again, does not really have QA resources for some reason. And then their random mutations, this says it's 150 coins, it's actually 1,000. If you do it as a tank or a healer, it's another 500, so it's 1,500. I've been trying to do this like basically every day. It's a really consistent way to get those, get the gold economy going for your character, especially in the early game. Continuing to talk about forts, so we just covered Monarch's Bluffs. Let's talk about CK. So what CK gives you is a global gathering luck boost of plus 1%. This is a really, really small luck boost. For reference, on gear, luck is usually about 2.9% to 3% if you actually run it. Luck doesn't influence the chance of getting a drop, but it increases the chance of getting a better drop in general. In the recent movement for New World, they've been, and for endgame content in particular, they've been kind of focusing on making luck less beneficial from a gear standpoint, but still as impactful from like a gathering standpoint. So if you're trying to get like a drop from gathering, luck can be helpful. If you're going on chest runs, luck can be helpful. But I'd say from other circumstances in the game, luck is basically a forgotten thing of the past, because AGS realized it was not a great game mechanic to have to use luck on all your slots in order to use something in PvE, and it just like didn't feel very rewarding. So they kind of took it out of the game, but this is like a legacy thing it's still in. So it's like this is a very low priority for it to have. Windsword, on the other hand, has a global consume bonus of plus 10%. So this is, I believe this is like a crafting related thing. Let's see. It shows you here somewhere. Yeah, you have to click on it. So increase the chance that a consume isn't consumed by use by 10%. Oh, I remember this. So this is useful in like a few circumstances, but it's generally not useful. Like it will just save you money, but the spot where this really is good is like before a war, for example, because in wars you tend to use a lot of like premium consumables, or like an influence race, you tend to use a lot of premium consumables, or like say you're about to go on a raid run with your faction, you tend to use a lot of premium consumables. So if you get this, then you have a chance to basically not use that consumable when you use it. Saves you money in the long run. I'd say this is like kind of a medium priority for it. Like it's a little bit niche in metas where there's like a lot of damage coming out, a lot of debuffs, and people are popping cleanse pots very, very often. It's like a lot more valuable, and especially for war content. But right now, I'd say it's a little bit less popular than it has been. Reekwater is a global PvP XP boost. This is particularly interesting if you go to the CK PvP area. That is like one of the best spots to gain XP in the game. There is also a exploit with that right now where you could effectively just kill trade, and you can get crazy amounts of XP from that. Some people are already level 200 plus on the PvP track because they've just been kill trading on the island. And usually how it works is the longer you've been flagged, the more XP that you drop. The island seems to have a slightly different mechanic, and that's causing issues. So that's something that I'm kind of looking for AGS to fix. But since they haven't fixed it, and because the PvP track is so annoying to level right now, and you need to level it in order to get those artifacts, I figured out something that might be worth sharing. Definitely not like something I would encourage, but that is something that's noteworthy that I think AGS should look at. And they also need to figure out a way to improve the PvP track rewards because they are freakishly hard to get. If we go to Everfall here, the Citadel gives you a global Aza Assault bonus. This is particularly useful if you're like in a spot where you're like going into PvE, or if you're trying to go in like the OPR and get the Aza Assault from modes. Like it can be useful for that. I don't think this is a really high priority for it. I think this is a low priority for it, and it's a reason why it doesn't flip super often. It's like it's not that useful of a thing. Salt's usually kind of in abundance. There's a global faction store discount. This could be okay for dailies, but generally isn't super high priority. We got Brightwood, which is a resourceless camping. Nice for the early game. Particularly nice if you can't find flint. So like for questing, this is nice, but I feel like it's a little bit out of the way for what it does. And now we start getting into the juicy forts. The juicy forts tend to be on the top half of the map here. So we have Weaver's Fen. The global refining yield boost is increased by 10%. This is really, really strong if you're trying to kind of increase the yield on materials. It doesn't apply to everything though, which is kind of funny. Like for stuff that uses jewel crafting, it doesn't apply. Engineering, it doesn't apply. Armoring and weaponsmithing. But like under jewel crafting now, right? Like you can craft gems, but with this logic that's been put in place for the Weaver's Fen thing, like this is not considered to be like refining, which I guess kind of makes sense, but it's like you're creating something, which to me is like refining. Like you're creating a gem from putting these pieces together. But anyway, in regards to like what it actually works with, it's with the refining section, like it kind of makes sense. But stone cutting, gems used to be under stone cutting, which is why I don't think it makes sense that they shouldn't work for gems anymore. Gems are now under jewel crafting, but regardless, you can use this to benefit anything that's into stone cutting
or not stone cutting, the refining category that you can see here on the left with the trade skills. So like smelting, woodworking, leatherworking, weaving, and stone cutting. All those are beneficial from that. So that's a really, really popular one that a lot of people like to fight over. Restless Shore has free fast travel. Honestly, a little bit more important than people make it out to be, but not important enough to where people consistently fight over it. Like you always see this Weaver's Fen fort flipping versus this one's a little bit less popular. Morningdale used to have like the most contested fort in the game with the global crafting bonus of plus 5%. The issue now is that you can't really craft this gear score, and if you do, it's like bound on player. It's not like something that's super useful anymore. So this is kind of fallen at the wayside. That being said, we did put out a video the other day that talked about the difference between 700 and 725. 725 is like best case scenario if you consider all the attributes that you get, like maybe 10% more powerful than a 700 gear score, and you miss out on some illegal perk combinations like Frigid Dawn that you can pick up from the mutation this week. So this is something that can be helpful if you're just trying to get that 700 gear score piece a little bit cheaper. You could avoid getting like some of those armoring pieces that are super expensive to actually roll gear. And you could also make a decent amount of gold off of it. I'm surprised how many people buy items off the TP, considering how powerful the loot bias system is now. But regardless, people are doing that, so this is something that you could take advantage of. We've got Eden Grove next, which is a global fee reduction of 10%. This is very powerful if you're doing mass crafting, or like anything basically that involves a lot of TP work, doing refining. So you could flip this fort, lock it in for an hour, and really benefit from this. This is a really underrated fort. I'm surprised people don't fight over it more. Also, this timer thing, I don't think I've showed this, but if you highlight over the lock, it will show you how long till that fort unlocks. Lastly, but definitely not least, we got Brimstone's fort. This is gathering quantity at plus 10%. So if you want to go out and gather a bunch of stuff, you can literally gather 10% more resources if you just take this one. This is really popular. I'd say like the 3 most popular forts to fight over. If you want content for fighting people, or if you like actually want to benefit from the fort, Brim is very popular. Weaver's Fen is very popular, and Eden Grove is decently popular, but probably a little bit less popular than you would think. All the other ones aren't fought for as much, but it's something that you can do. If you do flip one of these too, you get a good amount of PvP XP. It does take a good amount of time to flip though, like usually a few minutes. That used to be a lot quicker, but then people kept flipping forts back and forth, and it created issues. Then AGS introduced this lock system, and I think they reduced the time a bit, but it's still a bit longer than it used to be. So it's something that you can definitely take advantage of in terms of these forts. They give you a good amount of bonuses I think a lot of people aren't as familiar with, and it's honestly like a good hot spot for open world PvP as well. So like a lot of people like go out here to Weaver's Fen when it unlocks and just fight. Like it's really common to see like 20v20 out here on Pangaea, which is a fresh start US East server that I'm on right now, and just see a lot of people going for this, that, and it's super contested. So really interesting bonuses there that are like very underrated, and I'm surprised people haven't really talked about them as much or are not fighting over them as much, especially because it can kind of boost your economy a lot. So it's something like I look to do like relatively often when I'm trying to craft stuff, is I look to take control of some of these territories or like some of the forts. That just makes it a little bit easier for me to make a little bit of more per craft, if that makes sense. So let me know what you guys think about the crafting stuff. Let me know what kind of videos you guys are looking for. I haven't really done a lot of like economic videos, and I'm probably not the best economic resource, but I could definitely help out new players in regards of like if you're trying to get into the category where you can get like, you know, mid-game gear, or like relatively decent gear. I could definitely help out with that, or just make like a decent amount there. Otherwise, look out for more build videos. We're trying to squeeze out a few more. Also working on a website with some of the videos with Sherlock that should be up and running in terms of the PvP side this weekend. It has been a good amount of work. It probably doesn't look like it, but it's been a good amount of work, and trying to make it nice for you guys. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys later. Peace.